Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how you can take one color and turn it into a painting like this. So pick your favorite color and let's get right into it. When doing a monochromatic painting like this, and we're only using one color, we do want to be mindful of the color that we're using. So for this painting, I'm using just indigo here, and this is the Winsor Newton Professional Indigo. But I want you to think about the range of values that you can get from your color. So we want to be able to go from a very light value to a very dark value with this one color. So choosing something like a yellow or an orange where your values within that color are very limited might not be a good choice for a painting like this. So I always suggest, play around. You could even do a little value study and do some swatches where you can see how you can take that color from light to dark. So starting with a dark color, adding water and seeing how light you can go, or vice versa. But that's the first step with a painting like this, is just choosing a color that's going to be able to go dark enough for you. Now here I started wetting the paper and I just laid in a very light wash of that indigo color. Now later in the painting I end up re-wetting everything and making this a little bit darker, so you could go ahead and make that first wash even darker. And this is going to act as sort of that fog in the background to help push all of our first few layers back a little bit and create that depth in the painting. And here I'm just going in and starting to put in some of the trees, and I'm just taking my brush, and I think I'm using my size 8 brush here for this, and I'm just dabbing my brush and dancing it over the surface just to create some texture. Now these do not have to look like perfect leaves. I just want to get some texture in the background. And I start with a wider area, and as I'm getting this color a little bit darker, then I just come a little more inwards where the leaves are in the picture. Now when I'm adding paint to my color, I try not to add any more water because I've already got a watery version of this color. I'm just adding more paint to that version, and that's how it's going to get darker and darker. I do have the full version of this available over on Patreon, along with all of my real-time tutorials that I do over there. Now I'm just starting to create some of those trees, so I'm taking a very light wash again and starting to create some of the tree trunks that are in the distance. Now I'm going to do a first layer, and these are going to be very small, skinny trees because those are going to be more in the background. And then as I come with another layer on top, you can see they get a little bit darker and a little bit thicker, and that's going to help push those other ones in the back. Now I'm not too worried about having the tree trunk stop where the leaves are, because we are going to come over and do another layer of leaves, and that's going to hide those tree trunks that you see there. So doing a painting like this is all about layering too. Now if this seems a little too complicated for you, I do have a beginner version of this available on my channel, and it's all in real time. I take you through creating all of the different values that we're going to use, and we're only using one color again for that painting, so go ahead and check that video out. I'll be sure to link it down in the description below so it's easy for you to find, but that would be a good place to start before you tackle something like this. Now I'm just creating a little bit of foliage down at the bottom of the trees. I found it was looking a little bit bare there, and then I just take some clean water and I'm starting to create the foreground. So whatever color I can drag down, and I'm starting to create a little bit of the shadows that are in the foreground. Now we still have to put the trees in and the shadows from those, but I just want to get a little bit down. And this is where I go ahead and wet the whole paper again, and I create that more foggy looking background, just creating a slightly darker background. And I found this really pushed all of those trees and everything back even further, and I feel like that was a really good choice for this painting. And you can see I'm just throwing in some more color going over those trees again, and then I'll go back in and darken some of the areas up. Sometimes you've got to get some of those darker values in your painting before you know other areas need to be darker as well. Now I'm coming in with my more foreground trees, and this isn't quite my darkest version of this color yet, but you can tell compared to the background this is getting pretty dark. So that's why I say you want to choose a color that you can definitely get a few different values out of. Now you don't have to do as many as I've done in this painting, but you definitely want to get a few values, maybe 4 or 5 for a more advanced painting like this. And if you're just doing something simple, you could probably get away with 3 different values. Now I'm starting to focus on putting in some of those little leaves and branches from the trees, and I'm just doing a dotting motion, really like a very fast, loose dotting my brush around. I'm just trying to create something that will look like leaves. It doesn't have to be perfect, but even when you look at the painting, you can tell that it's leaves on a tree. And I'm still using my size 8 brush for this because I want to be able to cover a good area. Now you could go down to a smaller brush if you need to, but these silver black velvet brushes that I use have really great tips to them, so I can cover a big area, but I can also get some little fine details. I'm also not trying to cover all of the areas with these leaves. I'm just picking certain spots on the branches, kind of going by what I see in the reference photo as well, but you definitely don't have to cover every area. Now I do go back in after and add a few more leaves here and there. Sometimes in our paintings, less is more, and we want to just add as much as we can right away, but I like to add a little bit and then sort of walk away and come back and reassess it. That way you don't end up overworking it. And that used to be a big problem for me, so I'm really working on that, trying to be able to walk away and then come back and then see if I need to add anything even the next day or a few days later. I feel like my eyes are fresher looking at the painting then, and I can reassess it better. Now I'm just adding in the shadows for the tree, and my light source is coming from the top left corner of this painting, so I'm making sure that all of my shadows follow in that direction as well. And I'm just filling in some of the foreground, and there was almost like this foggy look at the very bottom of the picture, so I'm trying to get some of that in as well. And now here I'm putting in the little deer or elk that was in the picture. I absolutely loved the way he was standing looking at the forest, so I drew him in that way. Now this is where my darkest value is going to be, in our very last tree that I put in, and in this deer. I'm going to call it a deer. I don't know if it's a deer or an elk. So these are going to be our darkest values. So you can see how sort of everything in the background really fades off into the distance now, and that last tree and this deer really pops out. Now I'm putting a little bit of shading underneath of him, but for whatever reason when I was painting this at the time, I forgot to put his cast shadow in. So I do come back and add that. But this is where I'm just going back in and adding a few more leaves to the trees and just making it a little bit thicker in some areas. You could do as much or as little of that as you want. And now this is where I'm coming back in and explaining, whoops, I forgot to put that shadow in, so I'm just putting that in real quick. And again, I want to go with the light source so that shadow matches my other shadows. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I post my videos. Check out this other watercolor tutorial here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.